Khara Sach, Deputy Speaker of the Parliament of Sri Lanka, distinguished dignitaries from the CPA fraternity, Honorable Manjova Lifaka, Chairperson of the CPA Executive, Honorable Dr. Noraini bint Ahmed, special guest from United Kingdom, Honorable Lord Purvis, worthy members of the Senate and the National Assembly, a number of faces, my colleagues sitting here, Honorable Speakers and Deputy Speakers of Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Balochistan, Sindh, Gilgit-Baltistan and Azad Kashmir, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum. I am delighted to be here at the 5th Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Regional Conference on envisioning parliamentary paths towards a diverse and developed South Asia. And the goal of this two-day conference was evaluating methods of poverty eradication, looking at impediments against women in politics, sustainable development and youth engagement. And I must congratulate the Speaker of the National Assembly of Pakistan for having hosted this conference, and I think these are issues which are very important to the politics of the world, of this region and of Pakistan. So I'll be speaking to you about the imperatives as far as the international issues are concerned, as well as then South Asia, then Pakistan. Most of the political parties which come into power, they go to the electorate and talk about a modern welfare state. And welfare being something which endears them to the people and the responsibilities of the state in implementing those welfare programs. And that is where democracies and parliaments become important for legislation to achieve that direction, starting from the constitution, which gives a vision of what the country wants to be. And even if you go to the United Nations, the charter envisages what cooperation throughout the world the different countries should have between them. And within the country, the constitution and the pillars of the constitution then become the parliament itself, the judiciary, the executive and the media, which is the fourth pillar, and I believe the freedom of the media is equally important in all these areas. But when you talk about state responsibility, we make laws interpreting the constitution. Sometimes the judiciary then interprets the laws as the laws work in the population, and while we are doing that, then the executive implements those laws. The vision is usually very easy. All constitutions in the world give a very good vision of what humanity should be like, or what every country's political ethos as well as social ethos should be like. But when it comes to passing legislation, and I was a legislator for 5 years, and I believe, and I used to make a statement that Pakistan, for example, is an over-legislated country. I believe that there are so many laws, but the implementation of those laws is where most of the governments and throughout the world, not only in Pakistan, fail when they're not able to implement the laws which have been envisaged that these should be implemented. What is happening globally is also of primary concern to the parliaments and the politicians of the world. Globally, the global warming, there's still some denial somewhere, but there are a lot of research which has been done, and it has becoming a very important and a major issue on how to be able to handle that. But it doesn't affect Pakistan alone, it affects every country in the world. At the same time, there's increasing inequality. And I would refer you to a book, The Parliamentarian in Pakistan, the book. I had it bought by the National Assembly Library, and it exists, which is Capital by Thomas Piketty. It is not an easy book to read for those who are not economists, but it talks about, recognizes inequality which is happening in the world today. It is increasing with time, it's not reducing with time. And those of us who believe that capitalism and liberalism, left alone to its own devices, will bring more of an egalitarian society in the world and equality among the people, it challenges that context. So along with global warming, the fact that there is inequality between the people and the fact that that it is going to increase further, and that human race is in conflict with the world itself. The insect population, for example, has reduced tremendously, and if you create that unevenness, we are not even sure that humanity will survive unless it changes its course. There's a very nice, there was a nice book written by Yuval Noah Harari on the 21 issues of the 21st century. And these philosophers are talking about the fact that it is quite possible, with increasing machine and human interaction and the fact that the environment is being degraded, the Homo sapiens has a very great risk of surviving into the 21st century. Having said that, the parliaments are there to direct the governments in the world, because what happens with the governments are responsible for equalizing society. If you allow people to progress, and of course people should progress, and they should progress according to your capacities and capabilities, as people rise, what governments do is they tax at the top level, and tax at the elite, and distribute that welfare down to the people, and trying to create a society where education and health is uniform and opportunities are uniform. So of course it allows a generation to rise, but then it taxes and brings the wealth down to its common people. That's the function of society. But today it's not only the governments which are doing that. The multinationals are huge, richer than many countries in the world. There's disparity in the world. There are 100 billionaires who are wealthier than the 51% population of the world. So there is tremendous economic disparity which is continuing, and it is not going to get less with artificial intelligence and the changing digitalization of the world. Is going to increase further and further. How do corporations run themselves? Governments run through parliaments, but there's a challenge. How do corporations run themselves? There's a good essay, let me quote, by Mr. Gamble, Jaime Gamble, and he talks about responsibilities of corporations, and he points out 5 things which the corporations should be responsible. Corporations don't have parliaments. Corporations can skew, with the tremendous amount of money they have, they can skew government policies which affect the people. But the people have representatives in parliament, corporations do not. Corporations function independently. They are answerable only to their stockholders, where the primary thing is to make more money. So there are 5 suggestions by Mr. Gamble, and those 5 suggestions are important, and I was reading about them, so I would like to delineate before you that corporations should also become responsible, and it is parliaments which will bring that discipline. Difficult right now. I don't see it happening anywhere, but it is the parliaments and the will of the people which will make corporations be more conscious. So the 5 principles are that the corporations should be fair to their employees, the corporations should be fair to their customers, the corporations should be fair to their community, and the corporations should be fair to the environment, and the corporation should be fair to the next generation which is going to come. Unless that fairness is imposed in the world, there are 2 tracks which we are going in. A multinational track where corporations are richer and the rich people are richer than the rest of the world, and there are parliaments, which is a system which was evolved, a democracy which has evolved over a period of time, but it is being challenged. Your authority is being challenged by more money, by more power, by more data and more control. So I'm just guiding you towards that fact. The other international issue which is very important, of course global warming I talked about. The other important issue is the international politics. Governments tend to ignore the disparity among people. The disparity which is caused by this inequality, the disparity which is caused, for example, yesterday globalization was the word which we loved, everybody loved, but today national issues are getting more important and globalization getting less important because it doesn't suit the big powers today. When other suppliers start developing, when they only had the supplies to offer, globalization was their Bible, that buy, everything should be equal, everyone should be able to buy our products. But when the other suppliers have come up, globalization is being challenged and people are erecting and countries are erecting their walls. That is a challenge. The international politician should understand how to handle it. I don't know, but I am suggesting these are challenges which are being faced by you. And along these challenges of inequality is xenophobia. There's a price, every person has a different value. All humanity is not equal. Whatever the United Nations Charter may say, all humanity is not equal. We will allow our own to come in. We look at refugees with the spectacles of xenophobia, and therefore shamefulness in the world today. While Pakistan has given such a moral great example to the world that we hosted 3.5 million refugees, we still host a lot of them. It's what we did for ourselves, not for anybody. But when you look around, people are dying in the Mediterranean, people are dying everywhere, but the countries have erected walls. We don't want other people. Unless you place the value of every human equal, the world will not change. What we were being taught about humanism and humanity and everything, I think some societies are trying to unlearn that. So that is another major issue. And along with xenophobia is Islamophobia, that you start hitting people based on their color of the skin, based on their nationality, based on their religion. I think the world has to grapple these major issues today. These are issues which I have seen rise before my own eyes in the past decade. These are not issues of the old. For the issues of the old, the parliaments and humanity and politicians, devolved organizations or evolved organizations, today these are the new issues which are facing the world. Global warming, xenophobia, inequality of people. And that is why politicians like you are important. While you look at your own country, you must look at, when you cooperate, when you have a Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, this is where you must talk about global issues. We, in our parliament, will be talking about our own issues. And then I'm glad you are focusing on South Asia, and I believe South Asia has three primary issues: poverty, related to health and education. As we handle health and education, I'm sure poverty levels will have to will start reducing. But poverty and inequality are two different issues. Parliaments do not exist in a vacuum. And sometimes what the expression of the people, the parliaments and the executives, the responsibility is to implement the will of the people. Brexit is a very good example. What happened in the United Kingdom, the will of the people was to extricate themselves from the European Union, and it is proving very difficult. But the challenge is difficult, but it is proving that difficult, and so therefore the parliaments do have to express the will of the people. But what about the will of the international people? There is no forum where that will is being talked about, and therefore poverty, hunger is being addressed, but not at the levels we want to. Xenophobia is being addressed, but not at the levels we want to. So therefore, in every vibrant democracy, whether it is national or international, a vibrant democracy should be looking at challenges, should be then, first there's recognition of an issue. Sometimes there is no recognition of issues. Sometimes, for example, in the past 3 years ago or 4 years ago, there was less recognition of the global warming issue, for example. So it is important in parliaments, in our lives also, but more important because our lives are individual lives and parliament is responsible of lives of hundreds of thousands of people. First is the recognition of a problem. Then the fencing of the problem. That this is the problem. Don't let every problem mix up. There's a fencing of the problem, that this is the problem, and then we should be looking at solutions. But once we have found solutions, these are not abstract things. The solutions have to be implemented. That's where the important things are. As far as Pakistan's parliament is concerned, I would encourage all of you to have key performance indicators or timelines to be able to do something. Sometimes a lot of verbosity goes on in resolutions which we pass or the laws which we do without recognizing the fact that what happened to the laws which were passed before or what happened to the implementation of those laws. So I believe that there has to be consensus, international consensus on issues and the fact, and it is very slow. For example, international consensus on global warming is an elusive thing which people are not able to grapple. It goes beyond boundaries. What Pakistan does or what China does or what United States does as far as global warming is concerned, it goes beyond China, goes beyond Pakistan, goes beyond United States or Europe. So there has to be an international consensus which does not deprive the countries, developing countries like Pakistan, stepping into the international market to be handled in the same manner as countries which have developed before. It has to have some difference of understanding of development, but the issues have to be grappled and the issues have to be looked at with the fact that solutions have to be implemented. So, ladies and gentlemen, the future is bright. But at the same time, there are alarm bells ringing. They're looking for exit signs. Everywhere there should be an exit sign. But humanity cannot exit from the earth. You can exit from here. If there's a fire and you can always run away from here and there are processes. You cannot exit from the earth. The issue is very important. The welfare of the people of Pakistan and South Asia is very important. Their health is important. Their education is important. The more people get educated and the more we ensure the fact that there's health in society, there may be greater improvement beyond. Keep in mind that some constitutions have talked about happiness of people. Today, the survivability is important. Of course, happiness of individuals is also very important in a society, and happiness factors are also being determined. You remember the economist Mahbub ul Haq changed the parameters in which development was looked at. And then in the 60s and 70s, he talked about the Human Development Index, which was different than the gross national product that involved people. So in the future, what I think is the satisfaction of the people is in the satisfactory functioning of the parliament, the satisfactory function of the governments, and therefore are having a better future in which every human being has a stake. Imagine a poor man trying to run away from devastation somewhere in the world, having no stake there, taking his children, dragging them along, risking their lives, drowning or dying in the process. That world is an unfair world. So, ladies and gentlemen, parliaments are much more responsible. The onus is on you. A lot has to change and you are responsible to change it. So that's your responsibility. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.